Funding for Off 90 is provided in part by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota.
Cruising your way on this episode of Off 90. Find out why Rochester's Avalon Music Store is important to the history of Minnesota's civil rights movement. Discover the world's largest collection of Japanese wedding kimono in Wabasha. And carvings the size of a dime. Explore the marvelous miniature world of Winona's Steve Tomashek. It's all just ahead, Off 90. Hi, I'm Barbara Keith. Thanks for joining me on this episode of Off 90. It's hard to imagine the struggle for civil rights was felt so close to home. And a reminder of that struggle is still standing in Rochester. The Avalon Hotel, which is now a music store, used to be the only place in town where African Americans were allowed to stay. Come with us as we take a look at the rich history behind one of Rochester's landmarks.
Missed the Saturday dance, heard they crowded the floor, couldn't bear it without you, don't get around much anymore.
This hotel was very significant.
Lord, I visit the club.
High historic value as far as representing once what was a pretty difficult period of time in our world.
Don't get around much anymore.
The Mannings came here because Mrs. Manning had a health problem. And I believe Mr. Manning said she was in the hospital for many, many weeks. And he had no place to stay.
Been invited on dates.
So he did what few people could do. He couldn't sleep in a hotel, so he bought one. And not many people can come to a new community and say, well, I can't find a place to stay in a hotel, so I'll buy one.
Don't get around much anymore. Don't get around much anymore.
Many people in the black communities would come to the clinic and stay at the Avalon Hotel, even though other hotels had opened up a bit.
You know, they always say that we always stand on the shoulders of the people that came before us. I talked to a gentleman about 2 weeks ago that actually knew the black family that took over the hotel. You know, just a different time. I don't think we can appreciate what they did and some of the little things that they went through. And even though maybe no one was outside burning things in front of their house, it's a very isolated, and I don't know if you know this, but if you go someplace where you're kind of the only type of person, it can be very isolating. So I think that these people pay their dues, and I think that we benefit from that. I'm much more appreciative to people like the guy that built the hotel, and to white people, and to people who are not minorities, that stick up for us, that stick up and do the right thing. So those people are very important today, but they were extremely important in me being able to sit here right now.
Racial change takes place over a long period of time because most people don't even see that there is an issue. And until something affects them personally, or there's some sort of major catastrophe, people say, we don't really have the problem, so there is no need to be making changes for things if we don't have a problem. But I can guarantee you that there are problems. And I think you can see it around if you look. I came here as an engineer for IBM on August 5th, 1968. And as a matter of fact, I didn't see another person of color for 2 weeks. And so when I saw the guy, he became my best friend. We kind of collided like people do in the field, you know. Oh my God. But it was wonderful. And then other people were recruited too, and so they would stay about a year and they'd leave because the community didn't support their social or the needs.
I did not know that when we moved to Rochester that I discovered that we were living in a fishbowl. I knew nothing of it. People have said to me many, many times that I'm different. They get to know me. I said, how am I different? Well, you're not like other black people. So tell me, how many do you know? Daddy, let your mind roll on. It was a surprise to me because I thought we just moved into a new community that was not far from where we used to live. And I was surprised to know that we were the first black family to move to Rochester as being a part of the community. Things were still not good in the late 50s. When we came here, we had a difficult time. We were trying to find a place to live, and we did find a place to live in a fourplex. And as the gentleman came that evening, because we had done everything over the phone, and I said, oh, this is such a nice complex. I said, I'm glad, we were able to rent it or something to that effect. He said, well, the law says I have to rent to you. I said, well, thank you for complying with the law. So those were comforting words. It was just disgusting to hear some of the things like Marian Anderson came to Rochester and didn't have a place to stay. Was not accepted at the hotels. I remember when we went to see Nat King Cole. Nat King Cole came, and he did not stay at the popular hotel. Wow. He found another place. He said if it wasn't good enough for Marian Anderson, it wasn't good enough for him.
Sitting by the ocean, me heart she feels so sad.
Duke Ellington's band would play here at least once that I know of, I've heard of, maybe a few times, but they'd rent out the entire hotel to stay here with his band.
I'll never smile again.
And then the Ink Spots.
Until I smile at you.
I bet you it was pretty wild. I mean, back in that time, though it was very segregated, musicians like to have a good time, and so it was probably mixed emotions for them, being the only place that they could stay, plus being able to still travel around and perform.
I was very, very pleased when I saw that after the Hamilton music store was sold, that it was renamed Avalon, because I think Avalon is like an icon.
I just love the age of the building, the look of the building, the story behind it, and I thought, well, in honor of this hotel, as it once stood, I thought, to me, the light bulb went off. I wanted to have it as Avalon. And so I went through a couple of different variations, but Avalon music just stuck. And that's where we are today.
I think that when we forget about our past, it really leaves a big piece of the puzzle out of what we can expect from the future. I really believe that. And I believe that when we keep track and if we honor the people and the history of this town that went before us, I think that we're better people for it.
Why stir up memories?
Well, I'm very, very happy to be in this building with the significance of it, with the history of it, and being able to acquire a building, rather, from a business standpoint, I rented before, so to own and have ownership in such a great piece of history, and I want to maintain that history, and I'll maintain this building as such. And so yeah, it's a good thing.
Don't get around much anymore. Don't get around much anymore.
Not all galleries showcase traditional art like paintings or sculpture. There's a gallery in Wabasha that showcases a very unique and precise art form, the Japanese wedding kimono. Wind Whisper West is unique not only because it's a gallery that displays these beautiful garments, it is also home to the largest collection of Japanese wedding kimono in the world.
This particular kimono is unique. This is from 1914, commissioned by someone in Japan. He also had it made like a 17th century kimono because he wanted it made with a special lining. And oftentimes they wore the lining outside first and then this side. This is the outside. This is the inside. My name is Richard D. Fuller, and I'm an art dealer specializing in Japanese wedding kimono. The Japanese kimono came from China in the year 800. This particular kimono here is about 350 years old. We got married in the family kimono, so you see how the lines are worn here. And then there's a family crest, right? Most of these kimonos were made and designed in Kyoto, Japan. And that's turned into a lost art there. In 1990, the Japanese stock market went down 76%. Land values went down 50%. But no one went back into that business. They went into the modern business of manufacturing. Well, when I found out 10 years ago that they stopped making them, I bought 50 for investments. And then when I got them and saw how beautiful they were, I bought another 50 as investments. And then Japanese wedding houses, which rented these kimonos, asked if I'd like to buy 400 or 500 in one fell swoop. And I did. So I started out my collection, which is currently 2,000. And since that time, I bought as they appeared on the market. Most of these kimonos I have are made in the 80s, at the end of the Japanese kimono making history. This is a Yumi Kasura. She's the Vera Wang of Japan. This is French knots. She had in her store in Milan, Italy. This cost about $186,000 to make in 1986. This is the largest collection in the world of Japanese wedding kimonos, which are a higher price, higher category kimono. Most of these kimonos, when you see them, are in museums behind glass. We decided to do away with that so you could get close and get the full texture and the full color of the kimono. And if need be, put one on. Left over right. Pretend your hand's a crane. Just grab it like this. Okay. Just hold it like that, hold it close. Now remember, she's got several clothes underneath her, okay? So they always wear the kimonos back. My mission is to offer these kimonos as a prize art collection that you won't find ever again, now or any place in the world. It's a gone art.
Winona native Steve Tomashek thinks small, very small. He's been whittling for most of his life, and you won't see work like his anywhere else. You could fit a dozen of his sculptures in the palm of your hand. When Steve whittles, he lives in a different world where everything is tiny, and the wood seems to magically come to life.
A miniature is a condensation of something larger. I don't do insects. I don't do things that are naturally tiny. I make things that are larger, smaller. You can actually hold these things in your hands. It's an easier thing to grasp, and it's not threatening either. You become like a vessel of it. It's really important, the connection between the hands and a miniature object, and I've been exploring it for 15 years. I'm Steve Tomashek, and I'm a professional whittler. You know, no one grows up thinking they're going to be a whittler. I got started in wood carving when I was a kid, probably around 12, 13 years old, and it wasn't until college that I really took it up as a full-time hobby, as something that I wanted to do every day. And at one point I decided I really want to carve everything. It wasn't until the third or fourth year of college that I actually started doing this every day. And at first I wasn't all that good, so it wasn't like I stood out. You know, I was just the guy that had the bandage on his hand. My carvings range in size from about 1/4 inch up to about 5 inches. I've probably made almost 10,000 carvings. The miniature menagerie is a collection of exotic creatures. It's kind of a loose term. It doesn't mean that I'm building an ark or anything like that. I just have a collection of animals that I'm making, and that includes monsters and beasts, but also stuff out of my own imagination, whatever I can come up with. There's miniature objects all around us. It's just that I'm taking the time to make them special. I'm doing them one at a time, and I'm using my hands to do it. You want to make sure that he's looking right at you. Whittling is usually the preserve of young kids and old men, and I just decided to fill in between. The artists that I draw on the most are cartoonists. I grew up with Dr. Seuss and Gary Larson in The Far Side, and I think I see that in my work. You can eat your props after you're done taking the picture. I come from a background of wanting to entertain or to have something funny going on and be playful. Each carving that has turned out well, there's a lot of drawing behind it. There's a lot of practice. I'll draw a full page just of one animal, say, and just to get certain aspects of it right, how I want to see it, before I even cut out the wood. You know, I notice when people see my work that most of them have a very positive reaction to it. Sometimes it makes them happy, sometimes it makes them laugh. I always enjoy that at shows when I have a booth full of people that are joking or laughing and pointing out stuff to people. I get a kick out of that too. There's only so many pieces of artwork that you can hang over the couch or over the mantle. Some of my artwork gets hung in bathrooms, and I don't care where it's hung as long as people are looking at it and it's making them happy. And that's what I get from customers. They come back and they say, well, this picture, I have it hanging here, and it makes me happy every time I look at it. See, this is a mustache. One way I might start a carving is just to look in my box of wood here. A lot of people tell me that I must have the patience of Job to be able to do this, but I've always thought that something that's larger would require more patience because it takes longer to complete. These are the two woods that I use primarily. This is basswood and this is boxwood. And they're both very straight grained. There's not much figure to them, and they're both very dense. Working on detail requires very fine motor skills, but I'm sure that it takes very fine motor skills to work on something larger as well. It takes good eyesight, but there's magnification. So I'm not sure that it's more difficult. It's just a perception of being more difficult. When I first start carving, I use this larger knife, and it takes off a lot of material very quickly. That's why I don't cut out all the little things with a saw, because I can do it pretty quickly just with a big knife. I've done some work in clay, but I don't like what I can do with it. I don't know, I guess I'm different in that way. I see a block of wood and I can figure out how to manipulate it. Once you hold something in your hand like that, it's different than other pieces of artwork because all of a sudden you are the pedestal upon which this sculpture sits. You aren't just looking at it in a museum or looking at it on a wall, it's in your actual hand. There's a reason that people back in ancient times were not building large sculptures of humans or huge sculptures of animals. They were building things that were portable and packed with meaning. And that's what I'm trying to do even today. I feel the whole timeline of my craft behind me. At one point I have one foot in history and one foot somewhere else. Recently I've gotten into making short animated pieces that I put on my website. I've done about 6 movies so far. These are small things, they're like 30 seconds long, but they do take a lot of work. You have to make sure every picture is good and that they line up and that you don't mix stuff up in between. It's just been a fun thing to do. I notice when I'm carving, it seems like I feel almost desperate in trying to get something out of wood. That challenge has a payoff because at the end, I'm the first person to see this thing having come out of wood. I'm actually holding a piece of wood and seeing it come alive in my hands. Carving carving is a lot like meditating. You can get into this zone, and especially in miniature, where you are almost in a different world. I can make almost anything that I can imagine. I used to stay at home on the weekends whittling, and I'd be thinking to myself, what better thing could I be doing right now, you know? And it sounds kind of sad, but I really like whittling.
That's all for this episode. See you next time. Off 90.
Funding for Off 90 is provided in part by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota.